Hey guys, welcome back to the Sweat Equity channel. This is the second video in the manual swap series for my 99 BMW 323 IS. The swap is complete and running well. I am also doing some other needed maintenance to the car while things were apart, such as new oil seals. I hope you enjoy the series, and please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when the next video is up. Enjoy. Alright guys, I've got the automatic out of the car. It didn't really fight me. I ended up just cutting off the cooler lines right there, just because it seemed like it was going to be a little. These are 18 millimeter, I think it is, and I actually don't have 18 millimeter wrench here at the house. I just figured, you know, nobody's going to reuse these parts. This thing has 240,000 miles on it. In case you weren't sure, they are GM transmissions, Hydromatic, Strasbourg, France. I'm not sure if the 323 means the car model 323. I guess it does. GM. This one is, actually says BMW right there, but right here you can see where it says Get Rag. It's a Get Rag 250, even though the model number is 220. One thing to note is the Weebos are the same part on each one. Whoops. Didn't realize that was quite that. It's been just sitting just fine for like a week and a half. Obviously this one's trash. I replaced this one. This probably has like a couple thousand miles on it. So I'm gonna swap this one over to here. Right here, 410. I checked, real OEM, both are the same. One of the videos I was watching, they said they're different sizes, but at least on 98 to 99, they are the same part number. As far as the pedal assembly, I took out, or I cut out the wiring connector pigtails for the two clutch pedal switches. A lot of people are just saying they're just getting like another stoplight switch. At least in this case, it's a different switch for the stoplight. That will be this one, and this is missing the little pin right now, which is what presses this. So this would be normally closed or pushed in, and then when you press on the pedal, it comes out, and then it would I'm sorry, it's normally open when it's pushed in, and then it closes, turn the brake lights on when you push in the pedal. Over here for the clutch, it has one back here that will press in when you push the clutch in, and that would probably be pushing it all the way to the floor. That one you definitely need if you want to have a neutral safety switch, well, a clutch pedal switch. Had to push the clutch all the way down in order to start the car. It does have 3 wires coming out, so I got to figure out why it's 3 and not just 2. There's probably a redundant. It might be that the 2 browns are redundant. It should just be a switch. And then this one is when the clutch pedal is all the way up. When your foot not on it, it's in. So that would behave like the stoplight switch that it's normally pushed in. So all this switch would do would be like if you push in the clutch at all, like just slightly, it would close that switch. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be for cruise control, so that may not be something that a lot of people would care about, especially with a manual transmission. I'm going to try to figure out the wiring. As far as the flywheel, I have every reason to believe this is the original flywheel because it actually does say BMW on it. It has Luke stamped into it. That is the brand, the manufacturer of it. This is the dual mass flywheel. I just scuffed it up with a roll-lock disc, and I think it will be just fine. There's nothing really too serious about it. It turns one tooth before it has spring tension. Now it's going to be hard to show you that, but if I hold the bottom, there's some springiness to it past where it stops, or at least in that direction there is. So these bad boys are $300. The clutch kit, the Luke clutch kit, is about $150. I'm going to go ahead and save the $300 and go ahead and use this one. From everything that I can see about this car so far with the transmission, you know, because the clutch disc that came out of it actually said BMW on it also. So either that means that they took this car to the dealer to have a new clutch put in, or the original clutch with over 220,000 miles means the car didn't get driven too aggressively. But I mean, if you think about it, it's a green convertible with a tan interior, and it's the 323. It's not the 328 or the M3 or anything like that. The only thing it had was the fact that it was a manual. It's someone that made a little bit of money that they could, you know, afford a little bit nicer car, and they just got themselves a little cruiser. Here's the two diffs. This is the one out of the automatic. This one is a 391 gear ratio. I never actually did this one here, but this one is, oh, this is actually, okay, this is a 293. I thought it was 322 for some reason. So what that means is, this one being 3.91, we're gonna call that 4. So what that means is every rotation of the input coming in from the transmission, this will turn a quarter turn, or probably to make it easier, this will turn one time while this is turning 4, or 3.91. I put a little line there just to kind of show you. So if I turn this 1 revolution, see it's at like 9 o'clock now. 2, it's at 6 o'clock. 3, it is at 3 o'clock. And once again, come back up to the top, and it's basically all the way back up around again. You know, I guess it's slightly less than that because it is not quite that many. But this one is going to be 3. So if I turn it 1 turn, this one takes a little bit more effort to start turning, but it seems like it's smooth after that. See, we're a little further, more like 4 o'clock. I think I may have lost the tooth. But basically this one, it's going to be 3 revolutions to 1 turn here, as opposed to 4 revolutions to 1 turn here. So that just basically means that if I were to reuse this transmission, this differential, and not swap it to this one, when I was on the highway, where I might normally be at about 2,000 RPMs at 60 miles an hour, I forget exactly what it is in this car. It's probably a little more than that anyway. It would be probably more like an extra 1,000 RPMs of the engine more to go a certain speed, which would be good. You know, it's going to give you more gear reduction, so it would be faster off the line, 0 to 60, that kind of stuff, and probably good for track usage. But for just a driver that I want to be able to take on the highway, it's better to go with this one, because this is going to allow the engine to spin at a lower speed for a given actual speed on the road. That's the easiest way that I can think of to explain how the differential works. Another thing with differentials, I'm just going to use this one because it's easier. Oh yeah, and the funny thing about these, so this is the one that was in the car. This one is leaking from the axle seals, where this one is leaking from the front pinion seal. So I'm going to replace probably all 3 seals in that, the side seals and the pinion seal. I think these just pop out with a quick snap of a pry bar kind of thing, kind of like you're popping CV axles out of like a normal, what I'm used to, like a Japanese Toyota front wheel drive car. You just give them a good snap and they pop out. I'm pretty sure that's how these come out. All right, one last little thing about differentials. If you turn one side, okay, well, I've got to hold the front. Right now it's not differentiating. If I hold this and turn this, that side goes in the opposite direction. That's how you know if you have an open differential, which is what this is. If it turns the opposite direction, it's an open differential. If it turned the same direction, then you have a limited slip differential. These cars, I only think that the M3s had a limited slip differential, which is why those are generally like $1,000 used on eBay. Where these are considerably less. But that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously I pulled the pedals. Well, yeah, I pulled the pedals out. I'm at a point right now where I need to order parts. Order a bunch of seals, order a clutch kit, all that good stuff. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm like, I thought all these holes were supposed to be here, but it might be behind this cardboard. Yeah, I think it's right there. Yep. There's little punch outs, which is where the clutch lines would go, these two. And that's probably just another little rubber grommet that's on the other side that I'll have to just cut out. I'll probably pull this back a little bit. I'll see. Another thing that I won't need anymore, although I'm not sure if I'll even mess with it, is this is the transmission kickdown right here, which obviously I will not need. Yeah, so I got to figure out the wiring, and I think I'm going to, today, since I had to order parts, I'm going to try to run my clutch line into here, which evidently is a pretty difficult thing to do from every video that I've watched so far. I did have to pull the intake manifold on this thing to get to the starter. When I unbolted the transmission, even though the starter was unbolted, it was sticking on the top. There's like a dowel up here, I think, and I couldn't get it free without getting where I could put my hand on the whole starter. I was able to get it off on the other car, but I don't know if I was ever going to get it back in without taking this stuff out. So I did pull the intake manifold off. It probably took me an hour or so. It's definitely an absolute pain in the what, because of the way they have some bolts coming up under here like this, and it's not that fun. I may try to replace a couple of these vacuum lines, hoses, while I'm in here. At least this one. This was pretty loose. I might just be able to put like a little piece of hose as like a new connector on that. This is a whole line. There's like this little vacuum like reserve canister right here. All stuff that can cause little issues. This is the ICV as I have it labeled here. I actually replaced the whole engine harness on this car like 6 years ago, and I just put little labels on everything. There's a lot of them are still on, but that was a job in itself. I won't even get into why I had to do that. It wasn't exactly a brilliant thing that I did, but it was required, and I did it, and then was able to sell the car the second time. And I know I've cleaned this in the past. I think I just replaced this boot like a year ago because it was torn. As far as the injectors, I'm going to order like a kind of a mild rebuild kit for these guys. It comes with this new little pintle cover, like both O-rings on either side, and like a little filter screen that goes up here in the back. It was about $16 for the whole set. So the injectors are not expensive. They're about 30 to 50 bucks a piece. About 30 bucks, I think. But the car runs fine. It just always has had a kind of a rough cold start idle. Like it'll start up strong and then it'll start to idle really rough. And I've checked everything over the years, and sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. Doesn't necessarily have any real rhyme or reason. I remember I checked fuel pressure years ago because it actually has a Schrader valve on the fuel rail, which is missing the cap, and it was good So I kind of just left well enough alone after I messed with it for a little while. But I figure, you know, it's a good idea to do something like that anyway. I replaced this valve cover gasket like 3 times, and it still leaks. The other car does not leak at all. So I'm going to take a chance and get a new gasket set that comes with the little grommets here, because those are cracked now. You know, I did replace those years ago. And I'm going to take the valve cover off the other engine and put it on here with a new gasket set and hope for the best, and not have to spend $200 or so, 150, 200 for a new plastic valve cover. I'm obviously gonna do a rear main seal that is leaking, as you'd expect. Well, I can't see anything from here, but yeah, it's a very leaky engine. The other engine was surprisingly not wet like that at all, but you can see the rear main seal is wet around it. That obviously gonna get replaced. The oil pan gasket will get replaced. Haven't figured out how I'm gonna do that yet, because I'd have to support it from either up top and let it hang, because I have to remove the that front cross brace there, which is like a whole subframe. I'm thinking I'm gonna do that once the transmission is bolted up to it. The transmission cross member is back up, and then put a jack stand or something similar under the front crank pulley to support the front end, and that way I can take all that stuff away and unbolt the pan. I'm not sure yet on that, but that's just kind of what I was thinking as far as that's concerned. That's about where I'm at right now. I'm gonna go ahead and I got about, I don't know, $125, $150 worth of miscellaneous parts to try to get this thing leak free, or let's just say 90% leak free, because it's a BMW, it's gonna have some leaks. But I think today, this is what I'm gonna try to do, is get this pipe, dripping brake fluid on my, I'm gonna get this pipe run into the interior, so basically that's the grommet. It would come right through, and then the clutch master cylinder bolts up to that. So this evidently is a very tricky thing to do. It was definitely difficult getting it out, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like going back in. So wish me luck on that. All right, so it actually wasn't that bad. I got it through. You just kind of have to get it where it's sliding down. I'll show you on the outside in a minute. I taped it up. It was funny because it was looking like it was going to be impossible, because this thing bends one way and then it's got to bend another way, and then all of a sudden I came down here and I looked through the hole and I was like, what is that blue? And I was like, oh, you idiot, that's the tape you wrapped around it. And I just pulled it right through. So this is going to punch into the end of here, something like that. And I also ran the hose, so the feed hose for the master cylinder is right there. I started taking some of this apart here because I thought I was going to be able to take this out enough to have better access to where it goes through, because it actually, you can't really see it now, but I did run this hose. I did not cut the nipple off of this yet. That's how the clutch gets its fluid, is right from the brake master cylinder. It just has this little nipple that's on the automatic cars. It's just, you know, it hasn't been cut open yet. It still isn't cut open. I just put the hose there. I'm not sure how that's supposed to run. I just kind of pulled it up and put it on there for now. The line is right here, and that runs down, and the soft line will connect to the other end of it. I think I will replace the slave cylinder, because that's a much more difficult part to replace once everything's back in. So I will probably get a new one of these. This is a slave cylinder, and I'll just go ahead and replace that soft line too, probably. And that's where I'm at. Took out a few more things than I needed to, but it took me like maybe 30 minutes to do it. No big deal. All right, guys, I've got everything out of the car. I've ordered parts, and I'm basically just waiting for all the parts to come in before I can go any further. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to clean these things up. I'm just going to go ahead and paint them while they're out. I can't really help myself. They need to be cleaned up. They both have, well, that doesn't really have a leak per se. It's just dirty. This one definitely has a leak, which I'm going to take care of. But I'm going to hit it with some just degreaser, various brush attachments for the drill, and just wire brushes. This stuff is a little bit of a, it's kind of clingy, I guess is what I'm looking for. It'll kind of stay, it doesn't just run right off like brake clean wood, so I'm hoping that it'll kind of help dissolve this stuff a little easier. I'm just gonna hit the whole thing. With this stuff first. Do what I can, and you know, on the top side, and then I'll just flip it over and do the bottom side too. I actually did a pretty damn good job. Really got it down pretty far. This is that, which I've never even heard of that before. It was the cheapest stuff they had. All right, we get the idea. I was going to keep working at that on this one. Then I'll move over to the transmission. All right, I'm going to give you guys a little advice. I'm unboxing all the parts that have come in as of right now, about 6 packages from different places. I've got Rock Auto, I've got eBay, I've got FCP Euro. You might think, oh, well, you're going to know what it is because you're going to have the old part in your hand. Well, you know, if you're dealing with a seal, a lot of times the seal might be so mangled up by the time you get it out that it's not really that easy to tell what's what. It probably is, but as you're unboxing it, just write on it what it is. Like right here, these 2 seals, they're in the exact same box, but they have a different number on them. So take your packing slip and write what it is. This is the output shaft seal for the transmission. This is the input shaft seal. Pinion seal for the differential, engine rear main seal. This right here is the master cylinder. It's a new O-ring and clip for that because I'm going to reuse the master cylinder. This particular thing actually says what it is. It's a differential mount. I may or may not be replacing this. Depends on how difficult it is to pop it out, but it was cheap enough that I just bought it. Some things are obvious. This is the pivot ball in the transmission, or pivot pin. That's easy. It does say what it is. It's easy to see what it is. So that's just my 2 cents. Just label everything. I've run into this before where, you know, you just end up seeing all these parts and you don't know exactly what it is. This way there's no guesswork. You've got the right seal, you know what it is. And then this is just a comparison of the new versus the old clutch. This is the original. Well, I don't know if it's the original to the car or not. I don't think there's any kind of a date stamp on it. Well, at least not after it's worn. But they're both Luke. This one does not have the BMW name on it because it's not through BMW, but you can see how this one, these ribs, which are just raised, are just completely worn off of this one. This one is probably not completely worn out, but I have a feeling that once you're down below this, you probably start noticing like something. You know, they're there for a reason, I'm sure. So, you know, they don't go particularly deep. I don't know why they put them in there if they weren't there for a reason. So obviously you're not going to do all this work without putting a new clutch in the car. I mean, that's 150 bucks, you know. This is what came in the kit. Obviously the clutch disc. This is the new pressure plate. You've got the, what I call a throwout bearing. I forget what they call it. And then it comes with 2 alignment tools. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so there's different diameters of the tip right there. And then you've got the pilot bearing. There's 2. I forget why there would be 2. Maybe you only use one or the other. I'm not sure. That's what you get in the clutch kit. I'm going to reuse the old dual mass flywheel. Probably stupid, but for $300, you know, it's not like I'm daily driving this car. It's just a car that I'm going to drive, you know, on the weekend or occasionally, something like that. So that's what I'm going with. All right, we're gonna go ahead and remove the Weebo or the flex disc from the transmission. This one's going to get replaced. Wrong way. These are 18s. And actually the transmission looks pretty good, doesn't it? Once it dried, it actually looked nice and clean. When it was still wet, it still looked like it was a little bit dirty. Alright, so that is trash. This is... I mean, it's not destroyed, but it's definitely very cracked. And then there's a... I'm not sure if I'm going to have a socket for that. I may have to come back for that. Okay, so this I believe is a 30mm nut inside of here. I have a 30mm deep impact socket, which is too fat to fit in the hole. I have standard sockets right here that they're too shallow. You know, they won't go over the shaft. It's on the you know, this is the tail shaft or the tail end of it, which will be somewhat easy to replace down the road if I need to. So I may not worry about that right now. If I can do the input shaft seal, which looks like it is just under some what look like 10mm bolts right there, and that we will do. Because that's going to require taking the whole transmission out to replace. There you go. It's hard to get anything. There's like a little groove there, but it's hard for me to really get anything in there. So a little collar comes off. And there's the seal. Labeled it input. So that should be it. That looks like that is it. Probably the best thing to do is just get yourself like a self-tapping screw and screw it into the seal and then just pull it out with some pliers. Just make sure that you're only going into the seal itself. You don't want to scratch the metal if you can help it. And there it goes. Yeah, so it just screwed into the seal itself and didn't touch. It actually did kind of push against that back a little bit, but just a little bit. It's going to seal obviously around the sides. You can kind of see where it sits too. You just pretty much want to get it flush. But just take note of it before you take it out where it was, and just put the new one back in the same spot. Just clean any debris off of there. And just take a extension or something and tap it in. Just gotta get it started first. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish working that all the way around, and then that'll be done. Okay guys, that wraps up the second video. Please subscribe for the next installment, and I will see you guys very soon. Have a great day.